My name is Gregory Sipp. It's an honor for me to have two of my mosaics being displayed in the African American Museum. To me, the museum is a treasure to have in the community. It's a physical space to preserve and archive and celebrate African American history in our community. I am from Akron, Ohio, the home of LeBron James, the famous NBA basketball player and outstanding citizen of our city. However, I have lived in Ann Arbor for 51 years, so I basically consider myself a Michigander these days. I have another connection with Ann Arbor before I moved here. My brother, Warren Sipp, played football for the University of Michigan 1965 to 1966 era. And I, at that time, was at Ohio State. I actually started Ohio State in 1966, and I was there to 1970. So we had this sort of friendly rivalry, my brother and I. The way I got into art, I felt like I was pretty much an artist most of my life. I taught in the Ann Arbor Public Schools for 35 years, and many teachers think that teaching is an art form. I do too. One thing you have to do, you have to set up your classroom, you have to create a learning environment, and you have to present your curriculum in a way that takes into consideration all the individual differences of the students. So I taught at Bryant, Allen, and Tappan Middle School, and I loved it. And I had a passion for teaching. I retired 11 years ago. I got started making mosaics after my wife and I visited Rome and Paris and parts of Spain. And there I saw beautiful mosaics. When I got back, I actually started taking a mosaic class. I started off as a complete novice. I had an excellent teacher who I did not know at the time was an internationally known mosaic artist, but she was. Her name was Julia Hananson. She taught the students how to cut glass, how to shape the glass, how to glue the glass onto the board, and how to grout. She also showed us what a finished mosaic looked like. The first mosaic that I did was an African mask, and I have it right here. This is the mosaic that I did, and this is what I was talking about. This is the finished product. You can see on this particular mosaic, I used plates, and I used pebbles here, and the rest of it is stained glass. And notice the grout in between the pieces. I took her class. It met on Saturdays, and it was a 3-hour class, and I actually took her class for 5 years. And we came every Saturday. We learned from each other. We learned from her. We just kept working. And the teacher that was working with us moved away. She moved to Baltimore, and we stayed together as a group. And we continued to make mosaics. And I started making portrait mosaics after seeing one of Julia's mosaics on the studio wall. She had a different style of making mosaics that I wanted to learn how to do. And I'm going to show you the style that I used, that Julia taught me when I first started making mosaics, portraits. So you can see here the pieces are a lot small, really small. It took me a long time to do it. A lot longer than it does now because the pieces were so small. But you know, when I finished it, I just felt like, well, this is something I can really do. And so I wanted to keep doing it. And I made a number of mosaics using this style. And then, after a while, I joined a mosaic group, an international mosaic group called SAMA. And I went to Chicago for the Mosaic Conference. And I met another mosaic artist. Her name was Carol Shelkin. And she uses a technique. She showed me a technique that I use today, cutting larger pieces and not grouting. I have established a real passion for stained glass. And what I do when I look for stained glass, I look for the color, I look for the lines in the glass, and I also look for texture. I have to travel a little bit to find the glass. And most of the time I go to what I call the Mosaic Superstore in Lansing, Michigan. And it's like the candy store for me. Just so many types of glass, unique glass, and I'm almost to the point now where I'm collecting interesting pieces of glass. I listen to music on a regular basis, jazz in particular. Music has played a huge role in my life. Jazz and R&B are my favorite forms of music. I know, and I also knew that if I got good enough in making images of people in jazz and people in R&B, that it would resonate with a lot of people and they would like my work. I have completed over 50 portrait mosaics since I've been working, and I've learned from each of them. I did this mosaic of Aretha Franklin using the technique that I was taught by Carol Shulkin. And I picked Aretha because Aretha, I liked her singing mostly when she was around, in this particular mosaic, she's probably in her mid-20s. And she sang, the songs that really resonated with me. And also during that time, it was the 1960s, and it was during the Black consciousness movement. And Aretha had this, she always had like a beautiful afro. On this particular mosaic, what I tried to do was show the texture of her hair. You can see, if you look at it closely, there's a lot of texture in that glass. And the way the light shines on it, you can kind of see it a little bit better. I like also the color choices. That's one thing that's sort of unique about my mosaics is I like to pick and sometimes put in color that you wouldn't expect to have in certain places. For instance, you look around the nose, you see the little blue, the color that's a little different, like a turquoise color. You can see the purple around her neck, and places like that. In some of my other mosaics, I've really done a lot more as far as using color. But that's sort of my technique, is to use different, a lot of different types of color, and then combine them into a finished product. Another mosaic that I have here is one of John Coltrane. This one is I'm using the same technique that I was taught by Carol Shulkin. However, what I've developed really is my own style. If you look at this one, there's more colors in this particular mosaic than in Aretha Franklin, but also the colors, the mirror glass that's in the horn. I had a hard time finding this particular type of glass. I had to look at three different place stores in order to find the glass I was looking for. I also made this as a mosaic for a friend of mine that passed away last year, Robert Brown. And Bob, we call him Bob, and we used to go to a lot of jazz venues and festivals, and just really, he really enjoyed the music. I knew that. So he passed away, like I said, last year, and I made this mosaic to honor his memory. I've also made prints of this mosaic, and I've donated the proceeds to the African American Museum. So far, I've donated over $1,000 to the museum. What I would say to people, I started off, like I said, as a novice. What I would say to people that might be interested in going into art or another, different medium that they want to work with, is to find something you're really passionate about, find a good teacher, because that's important, and then just start working. Keep working, get instruction, keep working, and eventually you will develop your own style. So.